What happens when a marketer becomes a revenue generator? When they go from only being a custodian of a brand to architecting full customer experiences? And what happens if you're a bank, even a bank that can move so fast you can approve loans within 10 seconds and re-architect entire customer experiences? Well, it's all possible, but you need the right mixture of leadership, technology, and boldness to innovate. Hello, Mark Jones here. Welcome to the CMO Show. Great to have you with us again. Today we've got a really interesting insight into the heartbeat of digital banking in India. Incredible case study. My guest today is Ravi Santhanam. He is the CMO at HDFC Bank. We're going to talk about how you generate incredible revenue as a marketer, what it takes to re-architect entire customer experiences and the way that people start to think about what's possible from a bank. It's a fascinating story where all of these elements that I mentioned come together in quite a remarkable way, an inspiring story. So let's dig in.
Hi, my name is Ravi Santhanam. I'm the Group Head and Chief Marketing Officer and Head Direct-to-Consumer Business at HDFC Bank, India's largest private sector bank and the 11th largest bank in the world.
Is it part of a conglomerate? Because almost every Indian organization is part of a conglomerate.
We are actually fully public owned. We don't have a promoter, and we are a financial powerhouse. We are the commercial bank where I work, and we have an insurance subsidiary, life insurance, general insurance subsidiary. We have an asset management company. We have a trading and broking arm. We are a full service financial entity. You can call it a conglomerate, but without being owned by anybody. It's fully owned by public.
Great. And for the listener who maybe won't understand the market dynamics, how would customers see you as different in the marketplace?
We started off in 1995-96, and that was the time India was privatized and private banks were allowed to come into place. And we call ourselves a 30-year-old startup. And from the time we started to where we have come today, in the last 30 years, to become the largest private sector bank in the country, the third largest group in terms of market capitalization in the country. It's all because of how a team of professionals came together and built a bank. And the best statement that we hear from the entire Indian industry is when banking was going through problems, there was a time when people said nationalize and make it government owned.
Yes.
Today, the solution for any banking problem is privatize and make it work like HDFC Bank. Because we have shown the whole world that a private bank can actually do banking in the best way possible. And we are actually an example for a lot of people in the country in terms of how we actually have to run a bank.
It sounds to me like you're quite proud that the bank is effectively a benchmark.
We are a benchmark, and that actually puts a lot of, a lot of stress on us in terms of wanting to maintain that position, that exalted position that we have been given by the public. It also makes us very humble in terms of what we need to continue to deliver for our customers.
Now, you've just delivered a presentation here at Adobe Summit in Las Vegas. Can you give me a quick overview of your topic?
What I presented and what we talked to the people out here is how we actually used MarTech investments, which is considered primarily to be for digital means of engaging with customers. How did we actually use the same MarTech investment for helping our employees improve their productivity, and how did we bring them onto the digital bandwagon?
Okay, so not only have you improved your customer-facing activities, you've delivered some of these productivity gains that we talk a lot about but don't often see. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what was your role? Were you leading the project?
We started off as an investment for ensuring that marketing's contribution is measurable. The biggest question in marketing is always about what is it that you contribute.
Yes.
And maybe in the whole world, if I say 10 years, 15 years back, before the advent of digital transformation, digital technologies, people are only saying that marketing's job is to communicate and generate demand.
Yes.
And that's how I define marketing. And I used to define marketing as marketing is responsible for demand generation.
Of course.
Maybe in the last 10 years, we have reframed it, saying that marketing's job is not only to generate demand, you can actually fulfill the demand. And that's all made possible by the digital technology evolution that has happened across the world. Specific to India, we have what is called as the Digital India Stack, which has been done by the government of India.
Okay. Can you summarize that briefly? What does that mean?
So the Digital India Stack allows you to actually authenticate by a digital ID of every citizen in the country. So that's the first part of it, of able to identify a customer authenticated, because we have the iris scans, we have the fingerprints, we have the facial recognition technologies, all done by the government, available as a service for every industry to use to identify and authenticate a customer.
So it's a trusted solution from a banking point of view.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, that's quite remarkable for you to trust that service. In some countries, they might have question marks. I'm not casting any aspersions. It's just that that's a very difficult process, is what I'm highlighting.
We started way back in 2008, 9, 10, and today 1.4 billion citizens in the country today have a digital identity available with the government of the country.
I'm sorry, don't you have 1.4 billion citizens?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Just connecting some dots.
Yeah. So it's today when we look back, we say, wow, what has we done as a country? So the Digital India Stack, starting with authentication. Today, for example, open banking is what everybody talks about.
Yes.
In India, we have an account aggregator solution, again developed by the government, wherein as a consumer, on the consent of the consumer, the bank has to give all the data points that it has to anybody else who can use it.
So you've inverted perhaps what we might see in Western countries like Australia or the US, where we don't have an empowering environment to that extent.
We don't have. We actually have a very enabling environment, because you can identify a customer, you can underwrite the customer based on the banking information that is available, which is owned by the customer.
Yes.
As a bank, for example, our customers have a lot of information which we own as a bank, the first party data. But on the consent, we have to provide that information to anybody else in the financial ecosystem, because it's a consumer data that is owned by the bank, and it is not owned by the bank alone. So the government has made enabling provisions for people to share their financial information to any other trusted financial institution.
It's a remarkable position of power for the consumer.
Exactly.
What implication does that have for you then in the way that you think about marketing more broadly?
That is what has enabled us to say that we will not only generate demand, we can actually fulfill demand.
Yeah.
So when it comes to banking, it is all about underwriting, the credit. That's where you make your money. When consumers deposit money, it's a cost for the bank. But when consumers take money from the bank, it's all under underwriting. And today the underwriting is based on simple financial information that the consumer is actually providing to you. If everything is provided digitally, and if the underwriting rules can be codified in terms of digital technologies and the software, what is the reason for us not to leverage all this stuff to make the consumer experience far better? Today, for example, we disburse loans in 10 seconds to consumers. From the time of application to disbursement, it actually takes 10 seconds. And we started off in 2015 with our first 10-second solution. And it was a phenomenal improvement of what used to be a paper-led process, where you have to submit a huge amount of documents, and the underwriter will go through each and every document and then finally do the documentation, credit underwriting, risk, and all this stuff. Today, everything is available digitally, and you can do it in 10 seconds.
Because that is itself is that time is a remarkable customer experience.
Exactly.
What is your default rate now?
The default rate, we are the best bank in the country.
Yep.
And our NPAs are 0.3%, 0.35%.
So you're telling me it works?
Absolutely, it works.
Had to ask.
And the name that we have got is because of the credit policies that we have in the bank.
Yes. And also the environment that you're operating
Exactly.
in. Can you tell me then what's been the problem that you've been looking to address?
When I joined the bank in 2018, what we used to see is marketing is primarily in the demand generation space and not necessarily in the demand fulfillment space.
Okay.
And everything that you consume from a bank is digital in nature. And if we see USA, for example, the credit card is inside your Apple phone, and you use actually Apple Pay or any other wallet solution to actually go. The only physical form of a bank product is the credit card. The rest of the things are all money, and it's all digitized in India. So if everything is digitized, why can't we actually start originating and servicing in the digital world? And why do we only do transactions in the digital world?
Yes.
So banking is all about transactions, which is all digitized across the world. And we said, why can't we do originate? the account opening or a loan that is being disbursed to a customer or a credit card that is being bought by the customer, why can't we digitize the entire way in which we actually originate, underwrite, as well as disburse the money? And that's what we have done.
One of the speakers this morning in the keynote session, I think from ServiceNow, said friction is the enemy of marketing. So it sounds to me like you've gone after the digital friction. Is that a good summary?
We actually wanted to remove the physical friction, and we said digital is a solution to remove the physical friction. And even in the digital world, there is some friction that is required from an underwriting perspective, because you do need to understand the credentials of the customer. And whenever we do have credit policies, it is all about making sure that the customer is benefiting from the loan that we provide and they don't over leverage their positions. So there is a friction that is required. But for a certain customer segment, for a certain cohort of customers, that friction can be removed because you have so much of data available in the bank already. For a certain set of customers, you can actually remove the friction. For other customer sets, you want to create a little bit of friction to just make sure that you do the underwriting properly.
So I want to ask about tech, and then we'll talk about how you tell the story in marketing. One of my favorite things to say about banks is that I think they're technology companies with a banking license.
We want to be a banking company where banking is enabled by technology.
Yeah, of course. And I'm being cheeky, right? But what I mean by that is people are very interested to know, what technologies are you using to enable the solution you just rolled out?
So we started off with the customer experience that we wanted to provide, and we worked backwards to figure out what is the technology solution that will enable us to provide that customer experience. If I have to originate an account opening, I don't need to authenticate the customer. So there is another solution that I talked about, which is available, which allows me to authenticate the customer. I don't need to understand the financial position of a customer if we have to go on a credit card or for a loan or something. Today, the account aggregator ecosystem allows us to do it. There are so much of APIs that are available from the government of India, where I can actually call the income tax database and get to know your tax returns, all with the consent of the customer. Now, if that is available, what we need to do is to actually create a journey which the consumer is willing to go through today, because every other ecosystem, people have started moving towards buying everything in e-commerce, buying a ticket in e-commerce, everything is being done digitally. So we said this is a supply constrained economy where if we provide the supply, consumers will adopt it even in banking in terms of origination and servicing.
So speed is key in all
Exactly.
of that.
And more than speed, what we think is, how can we improve the experience of the better? And if there is a physical process, for example, there is a lot of things that happens because the documents are not fully collected at one time.
Just briefly, what technology companies are you working with?
We work with a lot of technology companies. I think almost the big 4 or 5, all of them are working with us. And Adobe is a good partner for us in terms of creating the customer experience. We do work with ServiceNow. We do work with Oracle. The name, you say the best of the technology companies, we work with most of them.
Great. How do you tell this story?
For us, it's all about what is it that marketing can do. The ambit became larger purely because of the advent of digital transformation that happened in the whole world, and particularly in India in terms of the authentication solution that I talked about. Why do you have to restrict yourself to demand generation? How can you become a revenue marketeer? Because marketing was always considered a cost center. Can I convert it into a revenue center? And that's how the whole start point was. And we have been extremely lucky to be in India at that time when the digital evolution happened. And we are able to more than make up for all the question marks on marketing in terms of what's your contribution, because today we directly contribute to revenue.
It sounds to me like sales and marketing joined together.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So have you developed a campaign around this? And I'm interested to know the customer mindset. If I think about what must be millions of customers, what are they looking for? How do you tell the story in a particularly, uniquely Indian context? Because, in my experience, there's many cultures, and you've really got to have a message that will apply in different geographical contexts, for example.
See, the way we actually looked at the market and the consumer behavior that was changing is people started moving towards e-commerce. Today, it's actually quick commerce in India, where you can get delivery in 10 minutes. People started moving towards mobility in terms of digital, whether it is Uber or Ola equivalent in India. People started using digital to actually engage with many of the industries. And I have a theory called the threshold of irreversibility, where after a certain point of time, when the new way in which you're working is becoming so convenient that you forget that there used to be a way in that I used to go to a place to book a ticket. I used to call an agent to book a ticket. So transactions digitization happened in the banking industry way ahead of time. Almost 90%, 95% of our transactions are digital today when you move money. You don't actually visit a physical branch unless it is a large money transfer that you do. And we said if everything is moving on the transaction side, digital, it is supply constrained. We need to give the option to the customer to actually consume a product that we provide on the digital means, because they are doing it for every other aspects of their life. So for us, it was more about making sure that people know that you can actually do it. And as a bank, we have this phenomenal advantage that where people come into our mobile app or our website to actually do the transactions. If they are there, can we actually personalize that interaction? Where we can actually prompt the customer to say, hey, this is the offer that is available. If you want to take it, you just have to click here and complete the journey. And it is available in 10 seconds, in 3 minutes, in 10 minutes. And people are not hesitant. People are initially hesitant to say, okay, should I try? And it's a question of trial and error for some people. For once a certain amount of customers start using it, the early adopters start using it, and then you think there's a huge tsunami of people now wanting to do it because they're doing it in every other aspect of their life. Why should I not do it in the banking side for origination?
I'm not hearing that you've developed a campaign around this so much as how you've rolled the product out. Is that right?
Exactly. We didn't have to do a campaign to tell people that it is available. We just have to tell them because they're anyway walking into our mobile map. We have almost 500 million visits a month in our digital properties today. We just have to make sure that every one of those visits are personalized experience. So if you can create that personalized experience, you don't have to reach out to them because they're anyway walking into your shop.
How do you grow competitively? Is there an experience where, for example, customers can refer you to others? Or
see, for us, market is huge and we like competition because it makes us better every day. We keep benchmarking ourselves with what is happening in the market internationally as well as domestically. And we say, okay, we need to provide the best customer experience possible.
Yes.
And it is about service. Banking is a service. And the more services that you are able to provide, the more friendly the interactions are, the more you are able to actually be in touch with the consumer needs, people will prefer a bank. The cost of switching is not very high. So you need to be extremely clear that you are providing cutting edge consumer service. If you can actually predict the need of the customer, which today's technology allows you to do a lot more and make the offers available to the customer at the right moment, I think you are in the game. If you're not able to do it, I don't think you're in the game.
I tend to agree with you, and I'm trying to get my head around the idea that people might actually like banks in India as opposed to Australia where and many other countries we have a long history of well, in brand terms, a very poor level of trust or certainly sentiment. Tell me about product marketing, because it seems to me that the conversation is evolving into this space where marketing meets sales, meets a deep understanding of how the product works. And we're using a CX label for some of that, but I suspect from the way that you're speaking, there's possibly a bit more to it.
There's a lot more to it because what we do is a huge amount of work on consumer understanding. One is the data part of it. The other is actual spending time. Banks again have the physical advantage of consumers walking into your branches day in and day out. They also walk into your digital properties. As I said, 500 million visits a month. There's also a physical walk-in which happens, and they are having interactions with our sales team. So what we need to do is to go there and park ourselves and just watch. What is it that they're coming in for? What is the service need that they're having for? What is it that they're saying that you are doing well, you're not doing well? And this kind of an interaction and availability of information in the sales ecosystem, in the branch ecosystem, we just need to find the method to harness it. Moment you go ahead and start talking to your salesman, they will tell you what exactly the consumer is coming in for, what they're looking for, what is good about your product, what is not good about the product, because the consumers do all the comparison for you and come back and say, I'm not using a credit card because it doesn't give me value here or here. Or I use your credit card and it is not getting accepted internationally here, there, and all this stuff. So that much of information, I don't think any other industry has it. If I go into a retail shop, for example, people will look for certain things. If it is not available, they're not going to come and complain to the counter saying it's not available. They'll go find somewhere else where it is available. And not every retail will stock everything. So they all understand that this is a retail specific for, say, for example, household goods is very different, furniture retail is very different. Second is actually directly meeting customers. You go sit in the branches, you walk in, customers are there, you just have a conversation with them. And we don't have to do focus group discussions beyond the point because we have so many customer interactions that are happening on a daily basis. You just have to be open to listening to their feedback. And you get phenomenal, tons and tons of feedback. While we do a lot of listening on the social media also, which is what the other way of doing feedback is, we have the advantage of a physical flesh and blood human being walking into a branch for transactions and for giving you feedback because they have a problem, they want to sort out, they want to understand something, they come into the branches, they call their call centers. That feedback, if you can put it together, you have a phenomenal understanding of what the needs are. Then you have to actually benchmark saying, okay, what is the product that I can create to satisfy those needs? And if it is creating a win-win proposition, you actually start winning in the market. Today, we are proud and at the same time, we are humble because in every retail product of the banking industry, we are number one.
I think we're now moving into a world where we used to say there's an app for that, to now there's an AI for that.
Yes.
Right? And I suspect that you will be trialing and using AI agents, not just through Adobe and other partners, but yourselves, and really experimenting with how to develop all of this. I'm interested to know, what does the future look like in that context?
I'll give you a little bit of context of India in terms of technology and what banks use in terms of artificial intelligence and other stuff. We are big consumers of artificial intelligence. Our credit underwriting as well as marketing understanding of consumers works a huge amount of data that is available with us as well as in the third party ecosystem. And we make sure that we use that to actually underwrite customers. So there's a huge amount of modeling. I have an 80-member data science team. That's the power of the data science investments that we have done. Also, very, very advanced technologies that we have used across the ecosystem, whatever is available, to both underwrite as well as understand the customers. That is helping us identify the need of the customer, what is the offer that is available. Today, what we see is the ability to personalize and personalize at scale in terms of the narrative that we do. I think that's going to come in because of the new wave of Gen AI investments that we are talking about. I have this simple equation that when I talk to you, for example, I understand the context. What is the conversation that we are having? And while I might know a lot about you, context determines the way we communicate with each other. This is true for every human being. This is true for every interaction that we do. How can we bring not only the behavioral information, the transaction information that's available, also understanding the context of the consumer situation and actually pen the narrative in line with the context that the consumer is actually looking for. If I understand, for example, you need money because you want to go on a foreign travel and you want to enjoy a vacation, compared to you need money to construct your home, compared to you need money because there is an emergency family situation, some medical emergency, can we understand that context? In each one of them, I will talk to you very differently as an individual.
Yes.
How do we actually bring that context into the communication that we do, and how do we personalize the narrative? Today, when we do hyper-personalization, it is on the basis of your name. For example, we'll say, hey, Mark, and we'll put your card number. We'll say this is the outstanding, and all these are number point personalization. This is personalization, and that's what is possible today. But what we want to do is the communication narrative. How do we actually personalize that? And I think that's where Gen AI is going to make a big, big difference.
And I think that's how we get beyond the idea of hyper variation of content at scale versus using AI to create this content on the fly at scale at a one-to-one level, right? So that makes sense to me. Yeah, it's really fascinating to hear the way that you're bringing all of these ideas together in one place. What would you say has been the hardest thing about your journey?
The hardest thing is always about change management.
People.
When you have a new technology and a new way of working, I think the biggest thing that we need to do is to manage this change very effectively.
Yeah.
And over communication is the key. No amount of communication is over communication. So how do we actually go ahead and tell the story of what you wanted to achieve, what the bank wants to achieve to a large set of people so that they come on board? When I talked about digital origination, you immediately sense a conflict with the physical ecosystem because they're saying, I'm doing the sales. Now here is a competing channel which has come in and they're talking to the same customers. And they also understand the digital has an advantage because I can talk to all the customers at one go, whereas they have to do one-on-one. So how do you bring the digital ecosystem to benefit the salespeople on the ground? This requires a huge amount of communication. We are lucky that the bank bought into this vision, and the amount of communication that we have done across the ecosystem in terms of going ahead, talking to people, listening to their concerns, showcasing them how digital actually helps them improve their productivity. This change management is the biggest thing that we have to do.
When people hear you speak or ask you about your story, I'm quite sure they also ask you what advice you have. Like how would you advise somebody else who perhaps doesn't have the same favorable regulatory environment as you to adopt elements of your story?
I think always start with the consumer experience that you want to deliver and work backwards. And there is no person in any industry who is going to come and say that, hey, I don't want to improve consumer experience. This might look like loud talk. What you need to do is to make sure that particular consumer experience, you start defining in what way it will improve. What is the current situation? What is it that you're trying to do? And how does actually it translates into better consumer experience? If you say this story well, I'm sure you are going to get a lot of stakeholders to buy into this vision and they will all start supporting you because you have to also tell them how it is going to help you do your job better.
Why do you think that's so hard for so many people? It's easy to say, start with the customer, and we hear it all the time.
Change is very difficult. I think all of us get into this mode of having done certain things in a certain way, and all of us have grown because we have done it in a certain way.
Yeah.
And then it's very difficult to say that what I used to do is no longer relevant. It actually sometimes questions your existence. Okay, and I think that's the biggest challenge many people feel once they actually start growing in their career.
If I do your idea, I might lose my job.
Exactly. Or I may not be doing it so well.
Yes.
I'm very comfortable with what I already have.
Yes.
It works for me. Like, for example, we're the number one bank. We're number one in every product. So when we say all this stuff also, even in the bank question, anyway, we are number one. What is it that we need to do now? Why should we change? And that's where I think the CEO's vision and the ability of the organization to rally around that kind of a vision and what the senior leaders do in terms of rallying around that vision and building all the morale of the troops to say, hey, this is the part that we need to do, go forward, because it will help you in this way, it will help our customers in this way.
Yes.
Once you crystallize that, I think it's relatively easy, but it's a tough job.
I was going to say it's a leadership challenge because the only way to go is down when you're number one.
Yeah.
So you have to have a vision for how can we be even better, and you have to be self-driven and self-motivated. And that's a very hard thing to do when you're number one for many organizations.
Exactly.
It's been an absolute delight speaking to you and hearing your story, and really for bringing a fresh perspective on the intersection of marketing, sales, product development, and leadership. An incredible story. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for having us and making sure that our story is told to the whole world. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of the CMO Show. Thanks again for joining us. I got to say, one of the key things that I took out of my conversation with Ravi was how this transformation experience that he's been on is a great lesson for us. It reminds us of the importance of leadership, of using the right technologies for the right outcomes, and being able to think about how you bring a whole team together with a common vision. A really great example of all the key elements coming together. And really, when you think about it, how the role of the CMO continues to expand. We need to start thinking in these much broader transformational terms. And he's really given us a great case study. So I hope you take a lot out of it. That's it for this episode, and we'll see you next time. The CMO Show is produced by ImpactInstitute in partnership with Adobe. ImpactInstitute is a professional services firm for purpose-led organisations. Our unique blend of impact consulting, brand storytelling and event services help our clients create meaningful change. This episode of the CMO Show was brought to you by your host, Mark Jones, that's me, and producers Kate Zadell and Kirsten Babels. Our audio engineers are Ed Chang and Daniel Marr. And a quick shout out to Adobe Experience Cloud, which gives digital businesses everything they need to design and deliver great customer experiences. Visit business.adobe.com to learn how Adobe can help transform your business.